Adil Raja is a retired Pakistani army major. He's a journalist and a whistleblower and a regular guest on the mother of all talk shows throughout this period of emergency, which Major Raja has now reached its zenith, I would have thought, or could it get much worse even than this?
Well, George, you never know with Pakistan. Thank you so very much for inviting me. And it's always a pleasure to be at your show. But right now, it's a very sad moment for my country, which is facing its General CC movement, actually. The Islamabad massacre, as it is called. I mean, a peaceful protest, George, is the right, basic human right, right? But in Pakistan, in my country, only might is right. And the Pakistani military junta, they've got the might, and they think they're right. I mean, they have carried out a regime change operation backed by the Biden administration, and ever since the country is a slow-moving train wreck. And they've tried everything, but they've failed to, run the economy of the country. So they are trying to bring in the investment, but the country is going down the drain. They've got a crime family right now leading the country, and they are collaborating. The military junta, the generals, they are supporting the regime there. And this year, on the 8th of February, there was a vote, there was a general election in Pakistan. 85% of the country voted for Imran Khan, who is currently in jail for almost 1.5 years for calling for the democratic right of the entire country, calling for reforms in the judiciary. So he's facing hundreds of trumped up cases, as it happens in a third world country, as it happens in dictatorships being sponsored by Washington, D.C., by the deep state of the Washington, D.C. But, there's a twist in the tale now. Trump is coming back, and I was listening to that ad, and I was really, I was enjoying that. So the Trump factor, George, that is really scaring the Pakistani generals now. What they did yesterday in Islamabad, they've killed hundreds of peaceful protesters. They have fired directly at them. And that's not the end of it, George. They've have stolen the dead bodies of the protesters because they are scared of showing the real numbers. And this is not only me saying, my sources told me, and I tweeted about it, and I talked about it in my live stream, and my live streams are getting hundreds of thousands of live viewers these days. I'm surprised because X is banned in Pakistan, and X is my main platform these days because I've been muzzled on most of the other platforms, including YouTube, by the way. But, I informed the people that the first task of the day today, after they did the massacre last night in Islamabad, and in the morning they washed the crime scene, they cleaned it. Like if you remember, once they killed Benazir Bhutto, and in the early morning they've washed the crime scene, and then once the international pressure arrived, like Amnesty International is calling for an independent inquiry. That time they called the Scotland Yard over there, but all the evidence were washed. So they've washed all the evidence. And now they have moved, and I informed everyone that, listen, they are now trying to hide the dead bodies. In the morning, their first priority is to hide the dead bodies. They're stealing the dead bodies. Guardian confirmed what I was saying. Guardian said that, listen, and Michael Kugelman tweeted it about an hour ago. He said, and he quoted the Guardian's journalist and Guardian, and the Guardian is saying it. But very nice of them to actually confirm my story. And they're saying that the record of those who have injured and who have been killed in the Islamabad massacre last night have been seized by the authorities. And once you say authorities in Pakistan, that means the feared intelligence agency ISI. Mind you, George, this same ISI dragged me 9 months of hell here in the UK through a counterterrorism investigation. They said I'm inciting violence. That ended with a no further action. And now, since UK is the libel tourism capital of the world, they've taken me to the court. They're dragging me through the courts for the last 2 years now, and they're spending huge amount of money against me just to muzzle me. I mean, but that's just me. I'm not talking about myself alone, but I am someone who is exposing this hypocrisy in Pakistan, George. Yeah, so that's what's actually going on. But they're scared of Trump, mind you, George. They're scared of Trump. They're scared because they're being sponsored by the deep state, obviously. So they're scared of how Trump is going to react. So they want to wrap things up before Trump's come in. They've been offering Imran Khan that, all right, you can go abroad, just go out, and we will handle your politics and your party the way we are already doing that. The Imran Khan's weakness is the Trojan, or I mean, more than one Trojan in his parties. They're his biggest weakness right now. I mean, the people of country are supporting him. They've killed hundreds have been killed, George, just last night on Imran Khan's call. But the Trojans in his own party called off the protest without him, without even consulting with him, and he's in jail. They're controlling the flow of information to him, and they're controlling what he says and what comes out of the jail. But that's Pakistan for you, George. But they want to wrap up everything before Trump come in, because Trump has got a sort of a personal rapport with Imran Khan as well, George.
Yes, you've answered one of the questions I was about to ask. Is it over for now? You've said that the people inside the Trojan horse called the thing off after all these deaths. Maybe that was the right decision. Maybe it was not. I don't know the relative balance of power and force and the state of morale within the army nearly as well as you. But my second question is, why are they doing this? Why is the army taking the risk of destroying forever the sacred bond between the army and the people? I've never understood it myself, by the way. The level of idolatry about an army leaves me quite cold, but I'm willing to testify that the vast majority of Pakistanis love their army with all of their being. Why is the army risking all of that by massacring their own people in the afternoon?
Well, George, that used to be the case, all right? That people used to love army. Now they hate it. The love had been replaced by hate, and I can assure you that, because you can just carry out a basic survey. I've got my hand on the pulse of the country right now, and I mean, you'll find people coming and commenting over here, other than those media cells who've banned X in Pakistan, but they're still using VPNs, like the Prime Minister himself. The puppet Prime Minister and puppet government is using VPNs to use X to give out their narrative. But the general population of Pakistan now hates their army, and in 2 years, everything has changed. Why they are doing it, George? It all comes down to personal interests of the generals at the end of the day. The generals themselves, they're committed gross human rights violations, like the regime change operation. They have killed activists. They have murdered journalists like Arshad Sharif. They've carried out massacres like the Islamabad massacre yesterday was happening in Islamabad at the same time, or in the tribal areas toward the Afghanistan border. There were a massacre by the army gunship helicopters were spraying bullets on the villages, entire villages, because there are riots going on over there. There's sectarian violence over there. So their answer to that is to fire upon them with gunship helicopters. And there is a war within going on in Pakistan, which following the textbook, they would like to call it an insurgency, because they don't want to legitimize the war. So they call it insurgency, obviously, something we've learned from the Brits. So there is a war within going on, but it has never happened in the capital city. But it did happen yesterday, and now they're trying to hide the bodies. And why they're doing it, George? Because of the vested personal interest of the generals. Because I would compare it with the Indians, by the way, because they are our rivals. The army chief who retires in India, George, he goes out and lives in his 3-bedroom apartment, maybe somewhere in Delhi. Our army chief is a billionaire in US dollars once he retires already. Our current army chief is already, the previous army chief, General Bajwa, he's a billionaire. before him, they're billionaires. They own islands abroad, and they say, well, that's not true. But they, even once the previous army chief's tax return got leaked, and he's a billionaire himself. From where did he make that money? From corruption. Imran Khan asks for the accountability, and they cannot afford the kind of accountability that Imran Khan asks. If there is accountability, if there is rule of law in Pakistan, the kleptocracy ruling Pakistan under the patronage of the military junta and the generals, they will all be held accountable. They'll have to be answerable to how come they've been so rich. Like the present prime minister, he was supposed to be, indicted the day before he became the prime minister, and his son became the chief minister of Punjab, and the investigating officer got killed mysteriously. He died overnight, and his post-mortem was not allowed to be carried out by the intelligence agency ISI. It's a proper mafia state, George, and personal interest have superseded national interest of Pakistan, and that is why the people of Pakistan now hate the army, and that's me saying it. It pains me to say it, George. I'm a third generation Pakistan Army officer. My father, my granddad, they were Pakistan Army officers. Myself, I've served for 21 years. And just for speaking out these things, just to showing them the mirror, they've court-martialed me in absentia and giving me 14 years rigorous imprisonment. Why? Because I speak? Tell me, George, what I'm doing wrong over here. But that is what is going on.
Well, stay safe, and we'll talk again as this story develops. Thank you, Major Adil Raja, former Pakistan Army Major, journalist and whistleblower, as you've heard.